Okay. I see 4 green check marks, but I need 6. I need 6 green check marks, so we must let it breathe for so brief a moment. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, Kyler Murray got himself paid, dude. And you had an interesting thesis, an interesting article today correlating how that might connect to one Russell Wilson, whose financial future currently is still somewhat up in the air, under contract, but could be staring down the barrel of an extension sometime in the not too distant future. Tell everybody what the Kyler Murray deal means for Russell Wilson.
Well, this was one of the dominoes that had to fall before the Broncos paid Russ, and along with Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, these quarterbacks that are up for new contracts and will be paid a king's ransom. Kyler Murray was paid that ransom. It's a little over $46 million per year, and on the surface, it in comparison to Deshaun Watson, it's market value. That's what the new barometer will be. But what's different about this deal and why the Broncos should sign Russ now and not wait considering this deal is you see it right there. Only $160 million guaranteed. That's not at signing. That's not fully guaranteed. It's probably closer to 100. The devil is in the details when it comes to contracts like these. And Deshaun Watson's deal in comparison, all of it was fully guaranteed, $230 million, I think it was, whatever. So the Broncos aren't going to pay Deshaun Watson money, but I would be more than happy to pay Kyler Murray money. And that still falls short of what Russell Wilson's supposed asking price was, if we all remember that report from last month. 5 years, $250 million, an average of $50 million per year. Paying Russ 46, getting that locked in now before someone like Lamar Jackson or someone like Justin Herbert resets the market again. I'm all for that.
See, that's what I've been trying to say, dude, for a couple of months now is the longer you kick the can down the road, the more you're going to end up paying. And Scott likes to bring up, well, hey, you're talking about monopoly money. You're talking about billionaire dollars, and they can afford. What's the difference between, say, if you signed him now compared to maybe a year or a year and a half from now, 2-3 million APY or X amount of dollars guaranteed? And while there's truth to that, especially when your new ownership group is helmed by the 19th richest man in the world, it's still everyone's still slave to the salary cap. So if you can get Russell Wilson signed and locked in now, it will save you money potentially anyway down the road. But one of the things I like here, Zach, about comparing it to the Kyler Murray deal is sample size is important. And Kyler Murray, he's shown so far through his young career that he's probably got a bright future ahead of him. The Cardinals are probably pretty safe in throwing those dollar bills at him. But Wilson, in 10 years, has been to 9 Pro Bowls. He's led his team to the playoffs in 8 of his 10 years, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 World Championship, and he'll be turning 34 in November. So he says he wants to play another decade, and he doesn't envision himself, Zach, playing anywhere but Denver. I don't know. Just get him paid, and then let's move on to a different topic. This is just, it's one of those things that's out there that, if it's like the rumor from last month from Russ, I want 50 million or whatever. If it's floating out there, just get him paid. Just get him paid.
Well, to me, the Broncos don't really have any leverage because everyone knows they're going to pay Russell Wilson. He's only signed through 2023. And as I put in the article, even George Paton admitted we didn't bring him here not to have him here for the long term. And they're open to negotiating. And even though those negotiations are taking place at a glacial rate, very, very slowly, in other words, they still are willing to open their checkbooks. And maybe when Rob Walton solidified as Broncos owner, I think it's August 9th, that will become official. And the Pat Bowlen era ends, maybe then negotiations will pick up. But this is all, you're going to pay him. Might as well do it now. Bite the bullet, rip off the Band-Aid, whatever cliche you want. Pay Russell Wilson, get that locked in, show some good faith, and reward the captain of your franchise.
Scott, for what it's worth, production note, I'm going to have to reach out to StreamYard again because the little delay things, we haven't been getting it on Skype, dude, when we've been doing the radio show. we haven't been getting it on Skype. I don't notice it. I'm gonna have to reach out to them again because it just drives me nuts when it's not right on. Sam Bam, what's good, bro? Jumping in the chat early before we hit the go live button and throwing down a very generous super chat as he is wont to do. Thank you, buddy. He says, "Evening, Chad and Zach. Can't wait for training camp to get here to see Russ and the team in action. What's the health status looking like going into camp? Is Randy Gregory still recovering, or will he be a full go at camp?" And then it looks like a record prediction, 12-5. Zach, what's the last thing we've heard on the Randy Gregory front?
The word I heard was evasive. The Broncos coaching staff about Randy Gregory, about his status for week 1 in training camp. I think they might put some training wheels on him, considering the money they paid him, the surgery they both elected to do after he signed the contract. He might be very slow out of the gates in training camp. You might not see him in the preseason, but I think the goal is week 1, September 12th, against the Seattle Seahawks. He did shed the shoulder apparatus that he had on, so he's on the mend. He's recovering, but I don't think the Broncos are going to risk anything in these practices and focus on getting him healthy for week 1.
As Dylan is reminding everybody, welcome in. It's great to see each and every one of you. Kevin, Big Earn, Jay, Greg Smith's in the house, Benjamin Flores. What's going on? Make sure you like this video before you dip on out of here with us, and share it's even better if you like what we're doing here. The other thing, and by the way, Christian, he says training camp is 1 day after my birthday. I'll be turning 25. Well, here's an early happy birthday to you, Christian. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Really appreciate that. In enemy territory, no less, down in Vegas. Zach, back to the Sam Bam topic of health, though. Randy Gregory is not the only Bronco recovering. We've also got KJ Hamler bouncing back from his knee just getting tore up last season. It's looking like the hope was, because his injury, which was significantly more grievous than we first realized, and recovery and all that has been ongoing since, what was it, late September when he suffered the injury. So the plan for the Broncos was hopefully to start taking training wheels off as training camp opens. Do you expect that to happen though? Because if I'm the Broncos, hey, I'm waiting a while to see what's what on the KJ Hamler front, because there's no doubt of him making the roster or not. He's a second round pick, a couple years removed, same class as Jerry Jeudy, and he factors into the big picture, including 2022. So let's not rush it. Let's let him do his thing. You drafted a very fast wideout in Montreal, Washington, who can do a lot of the same things, ostensibly anyway, that KJ can. But what have you heard?
Yeah, there's no rush. I agree with you. The fact that he's not a starting receiver, so you don't have to rush him. The fact that we all know what he brings to the table, Chad. He's your speed demon. That's your token game-breaking speed merchant in the receiving core. And the Broncos are fine there. They have 3 guys ahead of KJ Hamler. He's the number 4 guy, and they can afford to let him take up training camp in the preseason. And like Randy Gregory, get fully healthy in time for week 1.
Big Earn, been with us a long time. It's great to see you, brother. Appreciate you being here in the chat. Lawrence Rivera throwing down, jumping in early too. Appreciate that with some stars, my friends. He says Sierra's son out there looking better than Drew Lock. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Don't kill me. Yeah. We'll see what happens with Drew up there. But yeah, Sierra's son, Russ's stepson, been featured in a few workout videos and whatnot. Zach, this is what we're left with this deep into the true off season. But Zach, tonight is our last episode of this week. We'll come back Sunday night, Monday night, training camp, just a couple of days after that. So we are right on the brink of things going from 0. It really feels like 0 right now to 60.
Well, just another chance to laugh at Cleveland. They signed Josh Rosen for talking about, quarterback woes. So, yeah, that's where we're at in the NFL calendar. Fortunately, we're under a week away from training camp starting, and we'll have a lot of content, legitimate content to break down starting next week.
Storylines, multiple storylines every single day. This is what Zach was mentioning, guys, as far as the loosely reported demands that, for lack of a better term, that Russell Wilson might have on a new contract.
Cover your ears, Mike.
The first order of business for the new owner will be to sign Russell Wilson to a contract extension or said Mike Kliss of 9 News. 5 years and $250 million will be his asking price. Kliss later reclassified these numbers as his presumption and affirmed that no one has asked for anything at this time, close quote from the article. But that's the provenance. That's the source of the 5 years, 250. That's a $50 million APY, Zach. And considering that, that's just the direction the quarterback market is headed in the modern NFL, I think you charge it to the game and take care of business. Just make sure Russ is happy, because you can say, oh, well, what if he gets hurt and you haven't seen him do anything yet in a Broncos uniform? It's like, well, he did get banged up a little bit last year, but one of the things that makes Russell Wilson's body of work in Seattle so special, Zach, is that he managed to avoid the vagaries of the injury bug for the majority of his career.
I mean, every single time a new barometer is reached, people, gasp and feign this outrage about how much money quarterbacks are making. When it was 30 a year, everyone was throwing up their hands. 40, and now 50 is the big talking point about how any quarterback can be worth $50 million. Well, in a couple years, that barometer will be 60 million and then 70 million. It's only going to go up and up and up. So you might as well lock in Russell Wilson. If you're on record as saying you're open to a long-term contract extension, it's not going to be cheap. Everyone understands this. It's going to cost Rob Walton a couple bucks or two out of his bank account, but it's worth it to get your quarterback locked down and get your team kind of just, I don't know. It's a sign of good faith when you're throwing around that kind of money and rewarding the one guy who's at the controls of the entire season.
We have Eric Weber jumping in, one of our great superstar supporters on Facebook, saying, mile high salute to y'all. Like the Instagram post of all the players joining Danger Russ in San Diego for pre-camp workouts. Yes, it's just, they're not, Russ is not resting on his laurels. He's keeping everybody engaged. He's keeping everybody on point with him, continuing to build that chemistry, working through routes, working through, I'm sure, actual plays and whatnot. So it's really good to see that they are staying at it. They're on the attack, Zach, and that knowing that it all starts next week. Like, they're out there getting after it. Here's the pick. Thank you, Mr. Producer, that they're talking about. Eric's referencing there. I mean, they've been busy boys. I mean, you got Russ right in the middle. KJ's there. Okwuegbunam's there. I mean, what do you see? Do you see Sutton? Where's Sutton? Do you see him?
I can't tell, but I do see Brandon Marshall, former Broncos receiver. I don't know why he's there, but he is there. So the gang's all together, seems like.
Yeah, I don't see Cortland Sutton. Is Jerry
Jerry
Jeudy.
was there.
I'm looking for the picture. Where's Jerry in the picture? Anyway, oh yeah, he's right next to Russ. Do it. But and then Timmy P. So yeah, that's, if Sutton wasn't in the picture, it's probably because he was in and out. He might not have been there, and if he wasn't there, it's not the end of the world. Camp starts next week. Phil, good to see you, bro. Thank you for the stars, my friend, and hello right back at you. He's saying, let's ride. Hashtag MHH for life. Appreciate that, brother. Consistent, and it means a lot, especially this time of year, helping us keep the lights on here at MHH. Kenneth KB jumping in as well, an MHH superstar, no doubt, but also an alum. He says Russ's baseball helps him avoid injuries because of his ability to slide. Remember when we thought Locke wrecked his knee sliding with that knee brace? Yeah, I do remember one play in particular that was Manning-esque. Anytime Peyton would try to slide as a Bronco, that freaking massive knee brace would just catch and he'd get propped up right. And you're like, oh, that looked bad. That looked ugly. Yeah, Russ has a little more savvy in that department.
A lot of Drew Lock content on tonight's podcast. I'm not sure how to feel about that.
Hey, this is just where we are. We're in the
July
depths,
21st.
Man. Yep. We don't complain on this podcast. All right. We love talking about, the top shelf topics, from Russell Wilson and his contract to, the wide receivers to the coaching staff, all the way down to like the 90th dude on the roster. But when you've been doing that every single day with no new anything to really wrap your brain around as far as what's happening on the field, nothing new's happening on the field. Zach and I are so ready for there to actually be new storylines to break down and discuss day in and day out. And that starts next week, and we can't wait. Andrew, what's up, bro? Good to see you, my friend. Who should step up or step out? Hashtag MHH for life. Who should who's under the gun here? Step up or step out?
See if we can say it together at the same time, because I had one thought pop into my mind. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Bradley
Bradley
Chubb.
Chubb.
Yep. See, mind meld, baby. Yeah, he's the guy on the biggest pressure point for the Broncos season, because fifth year option. He showed glimpses of being Von Miller's long term replacement, and it's going to come down to they either retain him on a new contract, which won't be cheap as an edge rusher, or they let him hit the open market. So if he wants a career, not just in Denver, but in the NFL, he has to show that pre-injury 2018 form. If he does that, he'll be fine. If not, could be a 1 year prove it renegade mission for Bradley Chubb.
Bob Morris, who's kind of our resident cap analyst at Mile High Huddle, he's been marching through the key guys that are in a contract year. Bradley Chubb is obviously number one, opened the series, as it were, with Chubb. Dalton Reisner is another guy that's in a step up or step out situation.
Pretty much anyone on the OL with the addition of Garrett Bowles.
Draymond Jones, in the sense that he's at least in a contract year. So if he doesn't throw down this season, the Broncos could go, here's a few bucks if you want to stay. But like if he wants to get paid and he wants to capitalize on that next contract, because this is the final year on his rookie deal, Draymond's another guy that's feeling a little bit of pressure right now to produce.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy's up there as well. That's an obvious choice. A not so obvious one, I think, is Ronald Darby, as a cornerback too. They're fine with Pat Surtain as the long-term guy, but Ronald Darby's not cheap. And we both kind of cringe at that signing a little bit. So he either steps up and makes that money, earns that money, or it's time to find a new cornerback too.
Yeah, I hope, when Darby was on the field for Denver last year, I was glad he was a Bronco. Problem was, he started, well, at least early in the season, he was banged up. And that was kind of his jacket coming to Denver was, hey, solid corner when he's available. And the Broncos paid him like a guy who didn't have those kind of concerns. And that's why Zach and I were a little cringe when that happened. But I don't want to look. Ronald Darby, when he was on the field for the Broncos, he was a difference maker. I mean, no corner is perfect. No corner is going to bat 1,000. Even the great Champ Bailey didn't bat 1,000. So there were a few moments where he got torched, but especially Zach, when you compared him to the Kyle Fuller signing last year, it was like night and day in terms of guys showing up, producing, doing what was expected of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a name I landed on in the secondary. Also, Kareem Jackson. That might be obvious as well. He's on a 1-year contract, but there is a young player, a couple of them pushing for his spot. So he either steps up and holds it down, or he loses that title.
Yes, indeed. And Caden Stearns, hey, man, you had a very interesting, intriguing, at times impressive rookie campaign. Can you build on that? Can you keep the pressure on Kareem Jackson? I mean, as you say, Kareem's back on a 1-year deal. That in and of itself is pressure enough. But Caden Stearns, you got to keep that, for lack of a better term, you got to keep your boot on the throat. You got to keep it going. Can you do it? Will you do it? Meanwhile, you've got other young guys gunning for for your spot, right? For that projected number 3 safety from your draft mate, Jamar Johnson, to PJ Locke, who continues to stick around this team. And even under a new coaching regime, he's finding a way to stick around. People talked a lot about PJ Locke during OTAs. And then Turner Yell, what was he? What round? Now I can't remember what round, but Broncos drafted a safety. So we'll see what Caden Stearns can produce here in year 2.
Yeah, he was a late 6th or 7th round pick, I believe Yo was. So, I mean, that's a practice squad guy or a special teams guy. My eye is going to be on Caden Stearns for sure, because we both thought he had starting potential last year. He's pretty good in coverage. He made some plays and graded out positively according to Pro Football Focus. And we both know, everyone knows Kareem Jackson's not the long-term guy, not a 5-year guy. He's a 1-year guy. Hopefully Caden Stearns can be that successor.
He keeps sticking around though, does Kareem, and his first year in Denver, dude, when he was on the field, you want to talk about difference maker. I mean, it was palpable. And each year that palpable sense of, okay, the guy, the enforcer, the guy that's going to, wreck shop if you don't handle your business, it's kind of diminished over time, but I'm really curious to see how he looks in a non-Fangio scheme. And I know that the Evero defense is going to take a lot. It's very similar in terms of what Vic did, but I'm really curious to see because Vic, I think it was evident his favorite guy, at least as a Bronco, and he even said it. Kareem Jackson is one of my favorite players I've ever coached. Like, and Vic's just not a guy to gush like that. So it'll be interesting to see how Jackson ingratiates himself not only with the coaches but how he fits into the scheme.
Yeah, I bet Vic has K-Jack's birthday memorized by now. He was his biggest cheerleader and one of his biggest supporters. Hopefully, Caden Stearns can step up.
KB number 2 tonight. Thank you, bro. Really appreciate that, my friend. He says, "Did you see ESPN has offensive rankings drop, even though Sutton is 1 year healthier and the rest of the offensive weapons are the same?"
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that, Zach. After our show today on 98.1 FM in Denver, I had a couple of honeydew errands I had to run, take care of. So I haven't seen that, but drop some knowledge on us.
This might be the Bill Barnwell piece that Kenny's referencing, which he dropped today, and he ranked, I think, every team's like supporting cast or skill players, receiving weapons, whatever. And he had the Broncos. I can't remember the number. I think it was 10 or 11. But the laughable point here is that he had Seattle ahead of Denver. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. I would stack the Broncos' weapons versus the Seahawks' weapons, and I would choose the Broncos every single time. So again, it's one person's opinion. It's another ESPN talking head. These guys don't cover or know the Broncos like we know the Broncos, and it's irrelevant at the end of the day. So take it for what it is.
Yeah, that is definitely weird. We talked about this today, in fact, on the Mile High Huddle show, that this is Russell. This is easily the I think the deepest, most talented supporting cast that Russ has had, at least dating back to those Super Bowl years. But even the Super Bowl years, Zach, he was making hay with guys that were undrafted outside of like Marshawn Lynch. Like he was turning Doug Baldwin into a household name for like fantasy football owners and things like that. Now you got Cortland Sutton, Pro Bowler, Tim Patrick just got paid, Jerry Jeudy, first round pick, Albert O, Greg Dulcich, two-headed running back attack. Like how you could look at anything Seattle has. I mean, I get it. Fant just showed up. So now you got 2 first round guys, DK Metcalf, Noah Fant, Curse. I don't know. I still think the Broncos come out ahead on that quite handily.
Yeah, and considering the Broncos coaching staff, just as the other contributing factor here, I'll take Nathaniel Hackett over Pete Carroll in terms of an offensive game plan, but that's my opinion.
The Duchess throwing down. So good to see you, Michaela. Appreciate you. How have you been? We've missed you. We haven't been able to talk with you since, what was it, Monday night? And, we just been looking forward to it. She says, a weird day with Kyler's new contract. I think this starts the clock on Wilson's contract before it gets more lofty, maybe costly. Love MHH. Love you right back. And that's what I've been trying to say, man, for a while is, same principle as, hey, as when gas just kept going like this, gasoline. It's like, hey, the more often that you can kind of it feels like you're spending more, but you're actually saving some because the more often you just keep buying what it is today, knowing that it's going to be more tomorrow, you're saving yourself a little bit of money in the future, or at least, that's the idea.
Yeah, emphasis on that's the idea. I'm driving a Mustang out here, and I feel like I'm filling up every other day. So hopefully it keeps going down.
Yeah, dude. I filled up my truck the other day, and I probably sounded like Donald Duck. I was just like, I was looking at the butcher's bill at the gas. I'm like, just naughty words. Thankfully, no kids were with me. It's all good. It's all good. Zach, what do you suppose? We talk about the guys that are under the gun, the guys who need to show out to earn that next contract. We've talked a lot about Bradley Chubb. We've talked about Dalton Reisner. What do you suppose contract-wise Draymond Jones might be in line for? Because Bob, in a very nice article, guys, go read it at milehighhuddle.com. Very thorough. I'm going to quote him here real quick, and then I want to get your take on this, Zach. And keep in mind that some of the references he makes here are from earlier in the article, but he says, quote, don't expect Draymond to take a contract similar to teammate DJ Jones, who got 3 years, $30 million. Draymond is more likely to want to surpass Javon Hargrave's $39 million total value contract. That might mean Draymond is in line for a 4-year, $56 million contract next season with $28 million fully guaranteed, given that he will be just 26 in January. He's in position for a higher payday and a contract for 4 years, even if such deals are often 2 years, and then we'll see from a practical standpoint. If Jones surpasses 30 quarterback pressures, I still wouldn't expect him to hit the very top of the market, like Aaron Donald money. However, there's a real chance he could push for $15 million per year in a new deal. And then he brings up how, Broncos have 2 other key pending free agents in Chubb and Reisner. They're going to have some tough decisions. The vibe is they're going to probably end up, if this is assuming all 3 play well this year, they can probably only afford to keep 2 of the 3. And if that's the case, though, which 2 do you keep? Only time will tell. But what do you think about that, Zach? 4 years. This is assuming Draymond really builds on what was his best year last year and turns a corner in a sense. 4 years, $56 million, putting him up there in that next echelon of D-line pass rushers.
Well, if it's a beastly interior defender and a starting edge rusher, I'm definitely taking those 2 guys and telling Dalton Reisner to kick rocks. I'll find a new left guard. I was going to say that his next contract, the floor will be DJ Jones, but obviously Bob Morris disagrees. I don't know that I would go so high, 4 into 56, but that depends on what Draymond does this year. If he adds a Pro Bowl to his resume, as we think he could and should, he's going to be even more costly. But I'm keeping him around. He's probably my biggest priority, Bradley Chubb aside, heading into next year, because his potential, Chad, mini Aaron Donald. I know it's a lofty thing to say. I'm not saying full Aaron Donald, but what he can do to a game, impacting opposing offenses as a run stuffer and a pass rusher, you invest in those guys in the trenches.
All right. We talked about this on the Mile High Huddle show yesterday. We talked a little bit about it today. But the headline here, NFL analyst, there's a reason the Seahawks moved on from Russell Wilson. So a little segue here. The Athletics' Larry Holder recently took to the airwaves to unload, as it were, all of his misgivings and skepticisms about Wilson's move to the Mile High City. I'm not going to read this whole quote, but here's what he said. The Cliff Notes. I'm not totally sold on Denver just because Russ is there. I think they've got question marks. There's a reason why you're moving on from Russell Wilson. You don't move on from a guy if you're not ready to do it. I know there was a burned bridge between Seattle and Russ at that point, so you move on. But still, I'm not totally buying in that Russ is going to bring Denver to the promised land. In terms of just winning the division even, I'm not totally sold on that right now. Close quote. Zach.
Same thing I said on the radio show for those who didn't hear me the first time. I don't care what Larry Holder says about the Broncos. His opinion is honestly irrelevant to me. He doesn't cover the team. He hasn't been around the team. He's another flapping mouth espousing away about the Broncos, and he's entitled to that. That's his opinion. I happen to disagree. They do have some question marks, Chad, but they are unquestionably tenfold better than they have been at any time since Peyton Manning, and they're legitimate playoff contenders.
I understand the question mark some people might have, in the sense that, we used to talk about, hey, back when the Broncos were constantly wandering the quarterback desert, and the new league year was rolling around, and who could we sign? This Case Keenum, and we say beware, because there is no such thing as a free agent franchise quarterback, meaning that teams don't let bona fide franchise guys go like that. And the same argument can be made in the case of a trade. And so I understand how some people might look at the Seahawks trading Russell Wilson away, albeit toward the end of his prime. I still feel like he's got another 2 years left or so of his prime before you might start really noticing a decline of any kind. I can understand why people go, what was the real story there? Because Russ, top 5 quarterback. I mean, even the most stingy analysis, top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Why was Seattle willing to move on from that? Why didn't they just find a way to smooth things over? Something's rotten. What's going on? I understand the question mark. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with the sentiment per se, but it's fair for people to question that, I think.
Well, what bothers me is that he raises the questions but doesn't provide any possible answers. Why is that the case? What's your reason for saying that? It's anyone can do that. And honestly, Chad, the skepticism and hate surrounding the Broncos, Russell Wilson or not, is getting really old and played out.
Phil, do you guys think that Allen could be a sleeper this year? Who else comes to mind, Zach?
Yeah, Christopher Allen, I'm assuming the outside linebacker from Alabama, who the Broncos signed as a UDFA.
Undrafted rookie.
Yeah, he could be a good one, but where does he fit in? You're moving Baron Browning to edge, and you don't have a place for him. So Allen, if he even makes the 53, could be a deep rotational rusher, special teams guy, practice squad guy, whatever. Another player is Jaquan McMillian, undrafted cornerback. He can push for slot duties, and if he has a good camp, I wouldn't be surprised to see McMillian make the 53 over Asang Bassi. Those are a couple names for me, Chad. How about you?
I think Allen is a deep sleeper. I think he's almost guaranteed a practice squad spot now because of what they gave him and promised guaranteed money as a college free agent. But remember, he's been hurt, so they haven't really been able to
Right.
roll him out quite yet. But based on the money they promised him, even if he doesn't, like, health wise, he's not able to, like, right out of the gates participate and throw down alongside the likes of the Nick Benitos and the Jonathan Coopers and the Malik Reeds. He's still probably going to make the practice squad as a floor. I don't really see him as a sleeper though. Sleeper to me, yes, no one's talking about him. He's flying under the radar in that sense, but then there's also a component of, like, gonna let you know type thing, like break out, like have a big role on the team, then you're just maybe not foreseeing it. I'm not saying that's impossible with Christopher Allen, the undrafted rush linebacker from Alabama. It's just that there's so many different dominoes that would have to fall that are outside of his control before that could even become like close to being the case as far as like impact player.
You want to go true sleeper by definition. Mike Boone at running back, third running back, whatever he's going to be, is one. And also, Chad, future NFL MVP Brett Rippon as a sleeper in the Broncos quarterback room.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, don't sleep on Kurt Warner, 1999, Part 2. And I know, look, we've made some hay on that Barnwell story. Barnwell was just having fun in the offseason. Like, he was just throwing darts, having fun, like almost like a creative writing, project or something
That's
like
a tranquilizer dart, Chad.
that. Maybe. But still, like, at the very least, I got to relive one of the greatest quarterback seasons of all time, which was the Kurt Warner 99 season, reading that article. Otherwise, aside from it being slightly entertaining, there's no real merit or substance to the notion that Brett Rippon's even going to make the roster, let alone be this team's, or the league, I should say, MVP.
Yeah, we have Lawrence coming in with big stars. Appreciate you, Lawrence, so much.
Yo,
Lawrence goes, with all the new rules, which positions are the ones we should be investing in? I say that because some positions used to be the focus of the team, as in making all the plays. But now I feel like the rule changes have made some positions obsolete. I know you guys have mentioned fullbacks being one, but what's some other positions that are? Wow. Yeah, fullback is definitely one. I would say inside linebacker comes to mind right away, considering the Broncos are fine with who they have there: Josie, Alex Singleton, and Jonas Griffith. In Evero's scheme, it's a de-emphasized position, so I'll say that's kind of going the way of the dodo bird. You want more of a hybrid linebacker than a true off-ball linebacker.
Thomas Hall, the host of the Legends of Mile High podcast every Friday morning on Mile High Huddle, he's been really fixated, not in some, I'm not saying like unjustly, but bringing up the fact that fullback's going to be a bigger role in the Nathaniel Hackett offense than it's been in recent years, which explains why the Broncos actually threw some money at Andrew Beck to come back and play some fullback. We'll see how much that shakes out. I mean, even you look at San Francisco's offense, you look at the Packers offense running the zone, the wide zone, little fullback lead blocking action. I still think, especially considering who you have under center now, it's still going to be pretty sparse. But fullback, it's going the way of the dodo. Off-ball linebacker will never truly, in my opinion, disappear because you got to stop the running game still. But as you go from base defense being your 80% of the time, it used to be, Zach, like not so long ago. Even like you think back to the 05 Broncos that got to the AFC title game with Jake Plummer and Champ and Al Wilson and all that. I mean, those teams played mostly still in base defense. And nowadays, back then, the only time you saw sub packages and nickel, you come in on third down or second and longs, third and longs, when you could really anticipate with accuracy that they were going to throw. Now, dude, that's what you're running 90%, 90+% of the time is your base package, which takes off a linebacker. And in the case of Evero, what you're hinting at is they might not use any linebackers in some of these sub packages where it's like just a big safety playing dime backer in the middle.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because what I've noticed around the NFL, not just with the Broncos, but the evolution of the defensive back. I think cornerback and safety could eventually merge into one position because a lot of corners can play safety now and vice versa. Look what Simmons did for the Broncos. He played nickel corner a few seasons ago because of how beat up they were, and he held his own at that position. Another one that's kind of obsolete now is blocking tight end. Even though the Broncos signed two of them, you ideally want your tight end one to be adept at blocking and pass catching, and that's the hope with Greg Dulcich.
Yes, I see some questions here. How we can listen? How can we listen to? Mike wants to know the show, our new show on Mile High Sports Radio. Um, Let me find the link for you. So you can stream if you're not in the Denver market and you want to listen live. The good news is you can. There's a link, all right, and it's on the community tab on YouTube, um, and it's also on Twitter. But I'm going to put it right here in the chat and bookmark that every weekday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. That's 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. The Mile High Huddle Show, which is myself, Zach, doing our thing in kind of a radio format. And, it's about to get crazy starting next week. So that's how you do it. Go to the Mile High Sports link that I put here, and that's the listen live. And make sure it's just 2 p.m. and you won't miss it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys if you checked it out. We have GLP popping in, the legend Gary Leach Palmer. He
Yo.
says, "Hey, Chad, Zach, and Scott. Hello, Broncos country. Keeping my mouth in check. Go Broncos. Let's ride." Appreciate you, Gary.
Yeah, there's a lot of shade, but it's part of the game. People are going to get criticized. There are going to be question marks. Not everybody views the Broncos through a orange and blue lens, and that's okay. Um, but real quick here, we're sitting at about 37 minutes as we are still definitely in the tail end, thank the football gods, of the off season. Um,
Well, let's take this one real quick. I saw
yeah, grab it.
Dolph. I think this is a Young Dolph tribute account. Rest in peace, Young Dolph. Saw him in concert. He was a good artist. I liked him a lot. Kind of sad what happened, but fortunately, his killer was prosecuted. Dolph World wants to know thoughts on Mike Purcell. Not a fan of him. What do you think about Mike Purcell, Chad?
I think Mike Purcell, if he stays healthy, has a chance to still be a good value veteran for the Broncos. But problem is he outkicked his coverage, so the Broncos paid him, and then he promptly got hurt, and he just hasn't been the same guy. And it's not to say that Mike Purcell didn't see the field last year. Like, he got hurt in 2020, right after the Broncos paid him. He saw the field a lot last season, and the problem was, man, he would just shoot the wrong gap. His what gap integrity just wasn't good. He ended up being more of a liability at times than he was a true asset for the defense. So if this new coaching staff and his position coach in particular, Marcus Dixon, can find a way to kind of get him recentered and understanding what his role is in the scheme, hey, dude, I think right now if the Broncos had to go to war and play tomorrow, Zach, that's probably one of your three starting down linemen. It's probably Draymond, DJ Jones, Mike Purcell, and then of course Randy Gregory, if all assuming health, and Bradley Chubb. That's like your front five guys. There'll be a few behind him that'll have something to say about that. We'll see what McTelvin Ajim has to say, Deshaun Williams, but he's projected as your starter right now. Time will tell, though, because if he doesn't show well in camp, he's a guy that they could afford to cut and save some money.
I mean, speaking of positions that are going out of style, true nose tackle. Ideally, you want your defensive tackle like DJ Jones or Draymond, for example, to be good against the run and the pass. And name the last time a true nose tackle broke out in the NFL. Look at the story of Eddie Goldman, who was a star with the Bears a few years ago. And then I think he signed with the Falcons and just retired after signing. It was the Falcons or the Texans, one of those two teams. And this just shows that they don't have much use for them around the NFL anymore. You have big outside linebackers now, and you're in sub packages more often than not. There's no more real base defenses anymore, so you don't need that pure nose tackle.
Yes, indeed. You know what's fun, Zach, is we sit here doing the podcast, and back to back after doing the radio show. Like this is not throwing shade on the radio show because it's fun too. Don't get me wrong, but it is even in the slowest period of our cycle right now, where we have maybe a quarter of the number of people in our room live that there will be even a week from now when we go live. This is so much more fun talking with you guys and doing the podcast than it is doing the radio show. Radio show's fun. It's not like it feels like work to us. It's not like we're going, oh no, we got to do this. But the podcast, dude, having so much fun just sitting here talking with you guys, talking football. Because Zach and I, we talk every day, all the time. You know, that's what we do. And then we get on with a microphone and lights and a camera on. We talk to each other for the radio show. But this is the best because we get to talk with you guys. So thank you for being here. Appreciate you bringing that in for us. Love you.
You know, everyone has that comfy pair of clothes they put on when they're home chat. You don't go out wearing it. It might have a hole in it. It might be off color, but it's comfortable and you feel good when you put it on. And y'all are that shirt for us. I can speak for myself, for me anyway. I love talking with y'all. It's like riding a bike. It's second nature. And it is a lot more fun. I agree with Chad wholeheartedly.
All right, we're going to grab one or two more, and then we're going to dip for tonight. So if you got a burning topic or question, get it in the chat. Robert Otteson throwing down a super chat. Appreciate that, my friend. He says, hi, guys, from Nevada. Do you think any of our rookies will have a major impact this year? Also, everyone remember to get your swag at the MHH store. That's right, bro, Nevada. So technically enemy territory because Nevada is now a Raiders market. So this goes to show and goes to prove once again, guys, Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is a state of being. It's wherever you are. And Robert representing behind enemy lines, Zach.
Yeah, appreciate you so much, Robert. In terms of the rookies, you got to look at the higher round rookies because a lot of the late round guys are practice squad stashes or maybe even outright cuts. So you look at Nick Benito, he better, being the Broncos essentially their first round pick, at least the first one they made after the Russell Wilson trade. You take an edge rusher when you really didn't need one. He better make some sort of impact in year one. Major impact, it might be hampered by a numbers game because there's so many other edge rushers ahead of him. Greg Dulcich in the second half of the year could make a major impact. We talked about that on the radio show today, Chad, about the Alberto outlook and the tight end room outlook. And it might be Alberto is the tight end one to start, but by midseason, Greg Dulcich could be that tight end one, so he can have a big impact down the stretch.
We shall see, indeed. And by the way, bringing this up, it's, we probably should do this more often. Thank you, Robert, for the assist on that. Guys, our new store, lots of new designs that you haven't seen before. All right. A lot of new different merch, swag options. All right. HuddleUpPod.com. Starting next week, though, we're taking it to a whole other level. We're debuting new designs and we're going to structure segments around it. We want to involve you guys around this. So stay tuned for next week because we're dropping some new stuff and it's going to be really, really cool. But yeah, the merch is there. It's another great way to support what we do here at Mile High Huddle. And also represent the brand yourself and represent your team colors because we keep it Broncos colors here. But Zach, let's dip, dude.
We have to give Michael Ronquillo, considering the legend that he is, some love.
Yes.
Evening, Scott. He says, evening, Michael. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you tuning in with us. But that was the Huddle Up podcast, guys. Getting out of here a little sooner than usual. Wow, I just completely glitched. A little sooner than usual. Back on Sunday night, same time, same place. Until then, follow us on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You can follow Chad on Twitter at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott at Scout Kennedy. We just showed the store, but just in case, one more time, huddleuppod.com and get yourself merch that's there right now and new merch coming soon next week, as Chad said. Exciting stuff coming soon. Facebook.com/MileHuddlePod. Like that page and follow that page. Guys, if you haven't, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football pre-save 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every month. But if you can't do those things, as you see ticking below you, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans, just like you.
That it does. Appreciate each and every one of you. Shout out to these great supporters on Facebook tonight, throwing down stars. Phil McLaughlin, Lawrence Rivera, GLP, Andrew Baker, Eric Weber, and then our great Super Chat superstars, Sam Bam Christian, KB, The Duchess, and Robert Otteson. Much love and respect. Thanks to each and every one of you. And enjoy your weekends. It's your last weekend without actual Denver Broncos activity taking place. So rejoice, celebrate that. And Zach and I will see you of course, Sunday night. Don't forget, you got Legends of Mile High podcast with Thomas Hall tomorrow morning on the Bright.
Take care, and as always, guys, go Broncos.